Welcome to Jesus TV. This is a movie that Jesus is making, and I'm helping him using my mouth, my mind, my heart, my eyes, my voice. I already said my mouth, yeah. Um, this movie is called Prophets of Weirdness, and it was scripted by Jesus and a man named Larry Elliott. So I'm going to read the script. Prophets of Weirdness, written by Jesus and Larry Elliott. With all due respect, these guys are really weird. Why would God want the very people who are said to be his mouthpiece to be so strange, so antisocial, so bizarre? Don't believe me? Consider this. 1. Isaiah walked around naked prophesying. Jeremiah hiding his underwear under a rock by Euphrates. Jeremiah wearing yoke bars as he spoke to the nation. Hosea marrying a prostitute and naming his children weird names. Jonah running from God and ending up in the belly of a great fish for 3 days. Ezekiel eating a scroll, laying on one side for 390 days, cooking his food over fire of manure, prophesying over dry bones that come to life. Habakkuk confronting God on his seeming inactivity. Balaam riding a talking donkey. There are others, but these are perhaps the most remarkable. The prophets were, indeed, a strange lot, but God chose them and used them to speak his truth often to people who were utterly disobedient or others who didn't even know him. Though we often think of prophets proclaiming visions of the future, far more of their speech had to do with daily living and how God expected his people to reflect his character to the world around them. There are four major prophets: Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, and Daniel, though some would consider Daniel as one of the historical prophets, and 12 minor prophets. Major because of their length and breadth of the subject matter, and minor for their comparative lesser size. The Old Testament words define prophet as a visionary or seer, but most commonly as one who announces or declared the words of God. Prophets were quick to assert that God had spoken to them, quote, "Thus saith the Lord," end quote. Their collective voice declares a unified message that the nation had violated their covenant with God, that there would be discipline, but in his mercy, God would forgive their sins and restore the relationship at his future intervention in history. These prophets spoke this unified truth for several hundred years, and then after Malachi, the prophets fell silent. For 400 years, no prophet spoke in Israel. Then John the Baptist, clearly poured from the prophetic mold, replete with camel's hair clothing and locust snacks, and Christ were born, and the prophetic ministry was renewed. The silence was broken, the prophet's message was vindicated, and a host of prophetic truth was fulfilled. Christ continued the bizarre and disruptive legacy of the prophets: miracles, redefining the law, complete control over physical and spiritual realms made Jesus a marked man in a long line of weird prophets. Here was the ultimate prophet, the one who spoke truth and was the truth and would give his life, not as an illustration, but as the actual and effectual atonement for sin. We must not dismiss the actions of these men as eccentric, goofy, and bizarre. They spoke the very words of God. They were living object lessons given to incite the people to follow the truth of God. They were overt demonstrations of the life transforming power of God's word. There were no movies, no Snapchat, no animation, no tube to illustrate the serious nature of man's sin and rebellion. In the prophets, we see a picture of man's sin and the coming Messiah, Christ's atoning sacrifice, God's holiness, his intention to restore his people, his wrath, grace, and mercy. In his wisdom, God used these men to awaken his people and to preserve for us a picture of his eternal plan. Bizarre to us? Yes. Unimportant? No. End quote. And Ruth commented, yes, they are all really weird. This surely gives encouragement to those of us who don't quite fit in and feel like we've always been a bit odd or marching to the beat of a different drum. God uses all sorts of people, and definitely people who are a little offbeat and unusual. Good news. There's the end.